Obachi 2007 back at you with another one. Now the case of Jonathan Majors has gone to the jury. Closing arguments started on Thursday, and we're going to hear a recap of those closing arguments made by the prosecution. We're going to go back to social details to get a recap on that. Let's go ahead and get started.
The Jonathan Majors verdict? The prosecution is trying to rest their case and they are delusional. The prosecutors are saying that this trial is only about what happened in the car and that you didn't see any evidence that the defendant was attacked whatsoever. Are you sure? Or have you been at the same trial? Not only did we see pictures of Jonathan Majors' injuries, time stabbed, a scratch, a big cut on his face, but also the two people you spent all night with hanging out said they noticed no injuries on you. You didn't speak about a fight. You didn't speak about any injuries. In fact, you used your finger like there was nothing wrong with it. So are you sure that he's the one that caused you these problems? But we also have the driver of the car saying she was the aggressor, the only witness in everywhere. The prosecution tells the jury that this trial boils down to 4 words: control, domination, manipulation, and abuse. And she's right, but not when it comes to Jonathan Majors. These 4 words apply to Grace. If Jonathan Majors was abusive and controlling, he would have never called the police in the first place when he found her passed out on the floor. And how did he manipulate or dominate? He's running away from her the whole time, dude. She's the one chasing him. She's abusing him, trying to snatch his phone out of his hand. Continues.
We're going to get into more of social details recap in just a moment and then get into this commentary. But first, would you consider go ahead and liking up this video? Hit the like button to help us move through the algorithm. Would really appreciate that. Also consider subscribing and clicking that notification bell if you haven't done that already to make sure these videos get surfaced to you. And with that, we're right back to the program. Let's get with it.
The prosecution continues. She didn't want to report to law enforcement. She didn't even call 911. There's nothing wrong with appreciating the fact that the defendant called 911. You're proving the defense's case that she didn't even go to the cops at all until Jonathan broke up with her. He's the one who called the cops to save her. He thought something was wrong with her. She texted him, "I'm going to do something to myself." They state, this case is about the people of the state of New York versus Jonathan Majors. It's not Grace versus Jonathan Majors. Well, then the people of New York must be blind. The prosecution continues. This is not a revenge plot to ruin the defendant's life, his career, to take everything from him. The events and injuries were not consistent with a premeditated plan of revenge. I agree, she definitely didn't plan it, but when the cops showed up at her house and she was butt naked, she had no choice but to make something up. She didn't know that she was going to blame him for a domestic incident until the cops actually brought it to her attention and said, "Well, did he hurt you?" She was like, yeah, I guess he did. She didn't plan on saying nothing. She didn't know she was going to file a domestic incident until the cops spent 3 hours with her filling one out. In fact,
so this is one of the great points that I have been bringing to you all throughout the many videos that I have been portraying and putting up, that she was coerced by the police to make this claim against Jonathan Majors. And you want to know what her motivation is. So let's say, why would she put herself through all this? Why would she go through all of this scrutiny for what? For revenge, but because she got in it too deep. When she wakes up, pretends to be waking up from being unconscious, and the cops are on top of her because he called them over because she's threatening to unalive herself. The cops are there now. Initially, she either said he didn't do anything and or that she didn't know about 19 times. Then the cops kept pushing and saying, "No, he did something to you, didn't he?" Until she finally acquiesced. Once she acquiesced and made that claim, then she was in too deep, because now she retracts it. She has made a false claim, which is a crime on her part. She didn't even fill out the police report we showed you in another video. That was testimony that the cop initially wrote the complaint up, and then she took over after he had written up about a page and a half making the accusation. Then she jumped on board and went along with it. They spent 3 hours to get her to accuse and make a case against this guy when there was no case there. Once the evidence also started showing up, it showed that she is the aggressor, that she was the one who accosted Jonathan Majors, grabbed him, scratched him, dug into his arm, assaulted him, injured him, chased him. The driver, the only eyewitness, the only other person in the car with them, attest that she was the aggressor. There is a person who had to come open up the penthouse to let Jonathan Majors in. The building attendant or the janitor had to come open up the apartment for him to get into the room where she was. So he was never alone with her back at the apartment that next morning. There was no one, only person who saw them together, the last person to see them together was the driver inside the car. Uh, he says she was the aggressor. Then we can see on video, surveillance video, him getting out of the car, trying to get away from her grabbing him and trying to tell her, keep my car that I paid for to have the driver. I'm going to leave it and leave it with you. She jumps out the car, keeps coming after him, keeps grabbing him. He has to pull away from her. She rips his jacket, rips the button off his jacket, digs into his arm, scratches up his arm, his face, all these things. And then they're never alone together ever again in life. And she doesn't have injuries at that time. The prosecution's witnesses come in, the two people standing on the street, and attest that she had no cut behind her ear and her neck at the time. We can see video of her going to the club. There's no cut, no bleeding behind her ear, on her neck. Her finger is not broken or injured in any way that she can't use it. She hurt herself in the apartment, drunk and acting a fool and claiming and sending out texts to him and her friend saying she's going to hurt herself. And and again, men, this is why you should never deal with these type of erratic and volatile women. You put yourself in a position to be in this type of place at some future point when you deal with these kind of women. Your best bet is to not deal with these erratic and volatile banshees. Do not deal with a woman like this. Do not have her in your presence. That is your defense against this happening. So, going to the defense's closing arguments now, here at Danny Does Law and Policy, during closing summations, when Priya, that's Jonathan Majors' lawyer, said his fear of what would happen to a black man in America when he calls the police came true. This is why black people don't deal with the police. This is the very reason, because you call the police. There's a case I just heard about yesterday. I saw the headline for a Willie D's channel. Some 11-year-old boy called the police to come help him, and the police shot the boy, black boy, of course. This is why we don't deal with police. This is why black people don't want to cooperate with police, because we are then made the object of the police and the prosecutors' ire anytime there's any type of situation, no matter where the victim calling for the police help. Instead, we get the police turning on us. The cop on the scene made a decision, seeing that precious white woman. Let's take a look. Seeing their precious white woman in distress, in a straits, they came in, saw this, and decided he must have done something to her. Big mean black man, petite precious white woman, the man did something. The man is in the wrong. He must be in the wrong, and he is going to pay no matter what. This is your gynocery. This is your gynocentric society. It is not a patriarchy. This is what we're facing in a gynocentric society with an anti-male legal system, and your only defense against it is to keep these unqualified women out of your life. Stop going for the low grade just because of looks or whatever other reasons that you have decided, thinking that them being hostile and volatile is cute, or you're going to get good bedroom action out of it because she's feisty and all this kind. That is nonsense. These women are a problem, and they can cause major problems to your life. So, from this other Twitter person yesterday saying defense closing just wrapped, she sat down to the table. She and Majors did sort of a city hug. She too was dabbing her eyes. This is a Priya, his lawyer again. This isn't an opinion, but a statement of fact. I haven't seen this from the defense lawyer before. So here's some of the decent women, Danny Does Law, Kat, the Priya, his lawyer, who have empathy for men who are being falsely accused rather than just taking the party line of gender wars and sticking with the gender because a man is involved in an altercation with a woman, the man has to be the wrong. We saw him trying to get away from her. She chased him down, and somehow he gets charged with assault. Let's hear one last piece from Roland Martin and Company.
The fate of Jonathan Majors is now in the hands of a New York jury. The prosecution and the defense delivered their closing arguments today. The defense attorney for Jonathan Majors repeatedly called his ex-partner, Grace Jabari, a liar, while the prosecution described the incident as a case of domestic violence. Majors faces 4 charges of misdemeanor assault, aggravated harassment, and harassment after he called 911 on March 25th after he said he found Jabari unconscious in their apartment. Lauren, you, of course, were in the courtroom the last couple of days. The jury asked for several things, including that video we're showing right now, as well as the 911 call.
Right. I'm surprised, really, the jury is asking for anything. I feel like this is a fairly clear-cut case. One could not imagine what the reaction generally would be if we saw a video of Jonathan Majors chasing Grace Jabari. But that is not the video that we're looking at right now. We're looking at Grace Jabari chase Jonathan Majors, which is unbelievable. But they've asked for a few things. It is a 6-person jury with 2 alternates. I suspect the verdict will be tomorrow.
I don't know if this was recorded on Thursday. The video didn't go up till Friday morning, or does the jury deliberate on Saturdays? I don't know. But as of what is it now? About 1:46 Eastern time on Friday afternoon. The jury is not back yet, but we can see again and again. It is clear, despite the Twitter bots or the Twitter gender studies class of feminist anti-male warriors going ballistic with their simps to try to claim some text messages from an incident that happened months before this incident somehow proved that he had done something wrong. Despite that type of nonsense, everything has shown and everybody can clearly see Jonathan Majors is not guilty, and the only act of domestic violence committed was committed by Grace Jabari against him. Let's pray that justice be done and all will go well for Jonathan Majors. Hopefully that verdict will be back soon and his reputation can get restored. Yobachi 2007, subscribe, like, hit the notification bell if you will. I appreciate it, and I'm out.